So, have you ever heard the wild word-of-mouth mystery of the ancient merman? It's this magical creature, half human and half fish, that people used to whisper about centuries ago. But was it actually real, or was it just a tall tale? Well, welcome to your very first day of training. Today, this explainer is your official detective mission, and we are going to learn exactly how to separate true history from pure myth.
This explainer is produced by Waqas Ahmad Shah, educator, AI agents, and automation builder for educators, traders, and startups in Karachi, Pakistan. All right, detectives, let's jump right back into our mission. Okay, here's our detective training plan for today. We'll be covering Section 1, the mystery of history. Section 2, digging up clues. Section 3, how geography shapes history. Section 4, counting the years. Section 5, avoiding time traps. And finally, Section 6, the History Detective Recap.
Let's start right off with Section 1, the mystery of history.
Think about how we share news today. We've got cameras, phones, the internet. But a long time ago, before any of that stuff existed, information just spread by word of mouth. People just talked. And you know how it goes when stories are passed from person to person. Details change, they grow, and they become kind of magical. Which brings us back to our big question. Did the merman really exist? Notice how a simple story can snowball into this wild picture with every single telling? A creature like this definitely didn't exist. The artist likely just got it totally wrong based on confusing rumors. But here's the real secret. Even a wrong drawing is a massive clue for a historian. It shows us exactly how people thought, what they were afraid of, and how they shared ideas way back when.
Let's move on to Section 2, digging up clues. Sometimes old stories and funky drawings just aren't enough to solve a mystery. So what do history detectives do then? Well, they have to literally grab a shovel and dig into the ground. Enter the archaeologist. An archaeologist is a special type of historian who looks for sources buried in the dirt. Long before printing presses and photographs, clues about everyday life were left behind and, over time, got buried under centuries of soil. Archaeologists carefully excavate sites where vanished civilizations once lived, hunting for those hidden physical clues.
Just imagine for a second uncovering a hidden city like Pompeii. It is completely frozen in time. Picture an entire bustling ancient Roman city suddenly buried by a roaring volcano over 2,000 years ago. When archaeologists finally uncovered it about 200 years ago, they found everything exactly as it was left that day. That is the absolute magic of archaeology. They dig up the past to tell us a story we literally never would have known otherwise.
All right, time for Section 3, how geography shapes history. For this one, we're grabbing a totally different tool from our kit, maps. Because sometimes, to solve a massive historical puzzle, you just need to look at the mountains and the rivers. I have a challenge for you young detectives. Look at the landscape of Pakistan. What would the Indus Valley be like without those grand snowy Himalayan mountains up in the north? Just try to picture that in your mind for a second. The answer is pretty simple, actually. Without the Himalayas, there wouldn't be any water flowing down into the Indus Valley. And without that water, well, much of the area would just be a dry, empty desert where farming would be basically impossible. The River Indus has completely shaped human life there for thousands of years. But geography doesn't just create rivers, it creates doorways too. For example, the mountains in the Hindu Kush have these natural gaps, like the famous Khyber Pass. That specific pass allowed foreigners like the Aryans, Persians, and Greeks to make a long, difficult journey right into the region.
Moving right along to Section 4, counting the years.
Every great detective needs to know exactly when an event took place, right? If we don't know when something happened, our whole timeline gets totally jumbled up. People have invented lots of ways to count time over the years, but today, for global communication, we mostly rely on this system, BC and AD. BC stands for before Christ, and it counts years backward before the birth of Jesus Christ. AD stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for in the year of our Lord. 80 years count forward from the birth of Jesus Christ, so you are born in an AD year.
Seeing this on a timeline really puts it into perspective. Notice how Alexander the Great is way back in the 4th century BC. Then comes King Menander in 150 BC. For BC, the bigger the number, the older the year. It's kind of like counting backward down to 0. But then look at AD 1948. That's the year Pakistan's first Governor General Muhammad Ali Jinnah died. For AD, the bigger the number, the more recent the year. It just counts forward exactly like how you count your own birthdays.
And speaking of counting, historians absolutely love blocks of 100. A century is exactly 100 years. Now, here is a real mind-bender for you. We live in the 21st century, right? But our years start with a 20, like 2023 or 2024. Why is that? Well, it's because the very first block of 100 years was the first century. So by the time we finished 20 of those centuries, the year 2000 hit. That means everything after the year 2000 actually belongs to the beginning of the 21st block of 100 years. Makes sense when you break it down like that, doesn't it?
Okay, pay close attention to Section 5, Avoiding Time Traps. I have to warn you about the single biggest mistake a history detective can make when measuring all these centuries. We call this time trap an anachronism. It's a big, fancy word that simply means mixing things up in history by placing an object in the completely wrong time period. Historians work incredibly hard to keep their timelines true and clear, so they have to watch out for these.
To really lock this concept in, I want you to picture a caveman sitting around a campfire, just casually texting on a mobile phone. Or what if a historian claimed a child living in the 1800s was super tired at school because they stayed up all night playing PC games? That's just ridiculous, right? Computers and mobile phones definitely didn't exist back then. Those are classic anachronisms. Avoiding them is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, we end up writing science fiction instead of true history.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, History Detective Recap.
We've gathered some truly amazing skills today, so let's crack open that shiny new toolkit we just built. When stories aren't enough, we use archaeology to dig up physical clues, just like uncovering the frozen city of Pompeii. We learned to look at geography, seeing how the Himalayas provided the water that shaped the entire Indus Valley. We mastered calendars, learning to count time backward with BC and forward with AD. And finally, we learned to spot anachronisms, making double sure we never accidentally put a computer in the hands of someone from the 1800s. Every single one of these tools helps us solve the ultimate ongoing story of human civilization.
So, my fellow history detectives, you now have the exact toolkit you need to start digging up clues, reading the landscape, and tracking time like a total pro. But it leaves us with one final, huge mystery. What incredible, forgotten secrets are buried deep beneath the very ground you're standing on right now? If you enjoyed this adventure and you want to unlock even more secrets of history with us, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on our next explainer mission.